After what seemed like an endless tidal wave of delays, No Time to Die is finally here, and the 25th official Bond film packs a real punch. Yes, even more than Skyfall, which back in 2012 was pretty daunting after M bit the bullet. Nobody was ready for Judi Dench to die. It came as a shock, and she'd been with us since GoldenEye all the way back in 1995. But more so than ever, this latest installment in the Bond franchise has left fans speechless. You can really feel the shock in the air right now when it comes to No Time to Die. The repercussions set in motion by No Time to Die will be felt in the James Bond franchise forever, and this has already started to divide critics, moviegoers, and hardcore Bond fans. We just don't know what to think right now. Yes, it has been some 60 years since Dr. No hit the silver screen, but did Bond really need to be shaken up this much? And did the minds behind this one stir up a real mess? Let's find out. I'm Roy Benroy from WhatCulture.com, and this is James Bond, No Time to Die Explained. Number 9. What happened to Spectre? Nobody can argue that Daniel Craig's career as 007 has had the most ups and downs of any. Yes, many consider other versions of Bond to be worse, but this run really went from good to bad. Which brings us to Spectre. And yes, while this might be much better than Quantum of Solace, it sadly still ranks quite low in the Bond franchise. Which meant the glorious return of Ernst Stavro Blofeld fell flat, and sadly this sinister organisation was an afterthought almost. And that certainly was the case in No Time to Die, as Spectre might have the upper hand for a moment, but then is wiped off the map during Blofeld's birthday party at the hands of Valdo Oberchev and his nanobots no less, aka Project Heracles. And yeah, simply put, with one fell stroke, Sarif and Oberchev wipe Spectre off the map. Well, all but Blofeld. Number 8. Sarif's plan. Rami Malek's Sarif is a real throwback for Bond villains. He's super intelligent, disfigured, and thinks he's right. But unfortunately, Rami Malek isn't given much to work with, and the character is almost relegated to a subplot, as this is more of a personal story for 007. After Sarif's family is wiped out by Mr. White when he's a child, Sarif's only goal is to take revenge on Spectre and Mr. White himself. Though he never gets his hands on Mr. White, Sarif kills his wife and almost his daughter, who of course is Madeleine, and in a turn of events he saves her life, which in his words leaves both of them tied to one another forever. After he achieves his vengeance on Spectre and finally Blofeld via Bond, Sarif simply turns to power over the world for his next goal. Yeah, that's right, world domination is all he wants now. That's it. With Oberchev now working for Sarif instead of M, he aims to unleash these nanobots across the world, effectively culling the population. But unfortunately for him, 007 is here to put a stop to that. But this time, it's at a great cost. Number 7. The Secret of Madeleine and Blofeld. This one can be a little bit messy to piece together. What with the studio and Barbara Broccoli, not sure if Blofeld was going to return, with him at one point almost being killed off at the end of Spectre, though they just about managed to tie Blofeld in, which really makes Sarif redundant. Blofeld is here to bring both Bond and Madeleine back together after they split 5 years prior, and this time he's here to fulfill his promise that Madeleine would be the death of Bond. Of course, this seems like the narrative grasping at straws, but it's poetic enough that we'll let it slide. And where Madeleine was once the daughter of Spectre, this time she's very much the end of it. But with Sarif using their connection of fate to get Project Heracles to Blofeld, this would go on to seal Bond's fate and change the franchise forever. And Madeleine Swan's return was not only the first for a Bond girl, but perhaps the single greatest shift for 007 yet. For better or worse, she completes Bond and transforming from a cold-hearted killer to a loving father, even if it doesn't last too long. Number 6. James Bond dies. Character of James Bond is a strange one, especially for modern audiences. What with many becoming accustomed to the likes of the MCU, and precise timelines where you can pinpoint every major event of a character's history, and this just isn't and has never been the case with 007, which has led to wild speculation like James Bond's immortal or something. But most people seem to just theorize that 007 and James Bond are code numbers and names. No Time to Die at least confirms one of these facts, and disproves the wild one. Rumored to be the reason why Danny Boyle didn't want to be on this project is because they kill off 007. Was this the right call? Well, only time will tell. But thanks to a fatal injection from Sarif, Bond became the ultimate weapon for Madeleine, and if he was to come in contact with her or anyone else, the nanobots inside him would eventually kill her and his daughter. So all 007 could do was succumb to the airstrike and die, along with Project Heracles. Number 5. M's obituary. Just to really hammer it home that yes, James Bond is dead, M and his confidants at MI6 gather to remember 007. And for many, they're expecting James Bond to just swan through the door at the end, but it never happens. And during the gathering itself, M reads out some familiar words that Bond fans might recognise, which were lifted from Ian Fleming's book, You Only Live Twice. I would rather be ashes than dust. I would rather my spark should burn out in a brilliant blaze than to be stifled by dry rot. I would rather be a superb meteor, ever atom of a magnificent glow, than a sleepy permanent planet. The proper function of a man is to live, not to exist. I shall not waste my days trying to prolong them. I shall use my time. Not only do these words bring Bond's experience full circle, but these words become so much more powerful when you know Bond is actually dead this time, rather than just faking it out in You Only Live Twice. And this would be what Bond wanted, a brief service rather than a glorious send-off. Number 4. On Her Majesty's Secret Service connections. Before No Time to Die, send-offs weren't really a thing focused on in the Bond films. The cast and characters they played would just frequently cycle out, as well did 007. Desmond Llewellyn's Q is probably the only other character that gets an actual send-off, even though at the time it wasn't meant to be. Once he disappears into the floor during The World Is Not Enough, the look on his eyes really say goodbye. Prior to this, the only other big passing was Bond's wife, Tracy, which for the time wasn't only just the supremely dark ending, but it would also go on to haunt 007 for most of the franchise. And thanks to the excellent score by Hans Zimmer, this returns in No Time to Die. Lou Armstrong's We Have All the Time in the World is a massive inspiration for Zimmer here, and leads him to use this leitmotif throughout the film. At first, this might come across as a pleasant nostalgia trip that complements similar visuals, but it means so much more. This time around, Bond bites the bullet instead of his lover Madeleine. For so long he fought for Queen and country, but in the end, he sacrificed it all for her and the daughter he barely knew. Number 3. Will the supporting cast return? The MI6 regulars are like a warm blanket in any Bond film. Over the half a century plus that these characters have existed, they've become a vital jumping off point for the legendary 00. And before the Daniel Craig films had cast all this bunch, they just felt empty in some way. And M alone just wasn't enough. Thanks to Skyfall, we finally got the full roster back. But now with No Time to Die in the books, their future is up in the air, and now we don't really know what's going on with the franchise. It could move forward or step back in time. And this is a real shame, as this might have been the tightest supporting cast since Bernard Lee's passing. Ralph Fiennes is brilliant as M, Naomi Harris as Moneypenny is fantastic, and Ben Whishaw as Q is excellent. Even Rory Kinnear as Tanner was vital in this generation of Bond. Though with one thing's for sure, Jeffrey Wright's Felix won't be returning. And for simple reasons really, he was killed off. Number 2. James Bond will return. Though at least one thing is for sure, James Bond will return, not just 007. Simply put, cinema goers love this character and it's transcended the ages. And if fanfare wasn't enough, it makes a ton at the box office, with Skyfall being the highest grossing Bond movie to date. It broke $1 billion, and at one point was the 7th highest grossing movie of all time. And now with Amazon buying out MGM, they're surely going to work closely with Eon to make sure that Bond carries on. But that all aside, thankfully James Bond will return, and it says it in the credits, so that means it's got to be real, right? And number 1, what Daniel Craig did for James Bond. Now this one's really less of an explained point and more just a celebration of Daniel Craig. He might have played the most important 007 to this point, because over his 5 films spanning 15 years, he really did change the character for the better. And this one was a Herculean task as he left all the outdated aspects in the past and moved forward, keeping the character as close to Bond as possible. Now his reputation for being a sexist, misogynist dinosaur is in the past, and James Bond is no longer a relic of the Cold War. And this has taken place without compromising the character, and whoever picks up from where Craig left off better not screw it up. The next leading man has impressive shoes to fill. And that's No Time to Die explained and what's next for James Bond. Have you picked anything out that I've missed? Let me know down in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And while you're down there, follow us at What Culture on Twitter and follow me at Ben Roy Turner. And on Instagram as well, why not? Anyway, until next time, I've been Roy Ben Roy, and who knows, I might return.